Last year, I worked remotely from home for 6 months. My brain felt like it was overloaded. Until finally, I decided to go camping for a week outside the city, alone. I chose a place called Heightum Forest, in a quiet hilly area that was closed due to fires several years ago, but apparently has been quietly reopened for local climbers. I found the information on a hiking forum. They said the spot was sacred, but the view was truly breathtaking. And it was rarely crowded because access was difficult. I drive myself. Arrived at the forest entrance area around 5 p.m. There is no official gate. Just an old wooden board, it's slanted, the writing is almost gone. Start limit. Don't pass it alone. I think it's just a remnant of the old rules. And yes, I still entered. The first day went smoothly. I walked for about 3 hours before setting up the tent on a small hill that was slightly exposed. That night, the air started to get really cold. But it wasn't ordinary cold. It felt like the wind was rotating at one point. I also heard strange noises from behind the trees. It sounded like someone was walking slowly, then stopping, walking again, then stopping. But there were no animal sounds. No night birds. No crickets. Nothing. At 1 a.m., I left the tent to relieve myself. As I approached the abyss, I saw a figure standing. Not far. Only about 15 meters from me. Tall body, very thin. Just standing. His face couldn't be seen, because his head was bowed down. I thought it might be a prankster or a fellow climber. I flashed it, and he was gone. Not running. Not hiding. Completely out of sight. I went back into the tent. Didn't sleep until morning. And when I woke up, I found footprints all around my tent. Not shoe prints, but bare feet. They were an odd size. Long, slender, and the big toe seemed to stick out on its own. And the track stopped behind the tent, where I'd put my supply bag and rope. The rope was now gone. That morning I decided not to continue climbing. I just want to get off and go home. But when I got back on track, there is no path. Yesterday, it was perfectly clear. There were traces of trampled soil, open bushes, even a small tree I'd tied to a red cloth. Now, everything was as good as new, as if no one had ever walked past. But my logic says, this is just the effect of fog or the wrong direction. So I turned around, looking for a high spot to see north. When I went up a small hill, I saw someone standing at the top. His back was facing me. Wearing a long, dirty gray shirt, long hair covering her neck. I go up slowly. But when I reach the top, there's no one. I look down the ravine. It was empty. If he jumps, I'll definitely hear a sound. But there isn't any. And even stranger, only one pair of footprints. Mine. I backed away slowly, and when I turned around, there was a face behind the tree. White. Pale. His eyes were all black. And slowly, his hand emerged from behind the trunk and waved at me. I ran. I climbed down as fast as I could. When I reached the bottom of the hill, I stopped at a small river. I washed my face. drink. When I sat down, I was out of breath. I saw a small mirror floating in the river. Round mirror. I'll take it. And when I saw my reflection there was someone standing behind me. I threw the mirror, jumped back. But when I looked back, there was nothing. There were only scratch marks on the nearest tree trunk. It was in the shape of a number 5, and there was a handprint, not a palm, but a small, thin hand with long nails that made the scratch. I don't care about directions anymore. I'm going home. This forest, it feels like it's getting narrower, even though my path is open. Every 10 minutes, I see a figure. Sometimes it's just a shadow between the trees. Sometimes the white silhouette walks backwards away. Sometimes the sound, like someone crying softly. But what makes me most uncomfortable? I started hearing my own voice. Not the voice of thought, but it's like someone is imitating my voice from behind the bushes. Do not panic. Just keep going down. I can go out. I immediately walked quickly, but the voice followed. It even grew louder, until finally the voice changed. It became high-pitched and harsh. Don't go. I stopped. And from behind the right tree, a head slowly emerged. Its eyes were completely black. Its lip was torn to the side, and the voice was still coming from its mouth, using my own voice. After I saw that strange face appear from behind the tree, whose voice sounded like my own voice, I ran as hard as I could, without thinking about the direction. I just want one thing. Go out. The road was getting narrower. Tree roots seemed to be deliberately rising to the surface to block my path. Sharp branches began to tear my clothes. The fog slowly descended, reducing visibility to less than 5 meters. Until finally I found an open area. It was more like a small field surrounded by old trees. In the middle was a rickety hut made of rotting wood. But strangely, the ground around it was clean. No fallen leaves. No sound. As if the place was guarded, or avoided even by the forest itself. I have to decide, enter or play. And unfortunately, my steps faltered. I pushed the small trap rope, and suddenly, it snapped. I fell into a shallow hole covered in branches. Not deep, but it's enough to sprain my leg. I tried going up, but I haven't had time to come out yet. I saw the shadow of a head peeking out from behind the roof of the hut. Slow. No rush. It only appeared little by little, until I could see his eyes. Plain white, without petals. I finally got out of the hole, still holding back the pain. I'm back. Don't go into the hut. But when I came back, the route I came from was closed. Really closed. The trees grow densely like a wall. I had no choice. Breathing heavily and with aching legs, I walked around the hut to find another direction. And in the back, I found a row of sticks planted in a circle. It looked like a small fence made of twigs and small bones. In the center, there was a clay doll. Its face looked human, but damaged. Its eyes were hollow, and its mouth was sewn shut with black thread. When I looked down to see more clearly, the sound of heavy breathing came from behind me. Not an animal. Not the wind. Human breath, rough, deep, but not natural. I slowly looked back and saw 3 figures standing in a line behind a tree. Tall, thin, all heads bowed. And one of them, the one in the middle, was holding a rope. The rope I lost on the first day. I started to back away, but they didn't chase. They just stood there and began to move slowly in unison toward me, without a sound. It was like floating. But clearly, they were coming. I screamed as loud as I could. And from behind me, someone covered my mouth. Cold hands. Hard. Rough. And the only sound that came out was, "Don't let them see your eyes." As I slowly retreated behind the bushes, the 3 figures were standing still about 10 meters from me. They didn't chase, but I could feel their eyes looking at where I was hiding. The person who pulled me over wasn't a strange creature. He was an old climber with a dirty face, a scraggly beard, and a jacket full of holes. His name was Mr. Hilton. "Are you alone?" I nodded slowly. He sighed, "Oh well. Most people go in alone and rarely come out intact." I asked what was it that was chasing me. He answered briefly, "Not a ghost, but a guard who looks like a human. Sometimes silent, sometimes imitating, but never really said anything. They like people who are alone, especially those who get scared easily." He took me to a sort of dilapidated hut, which he said had been built by search and rescue volunteers in 2009. The place was cramped, but there were remnants of old equipment. Pieces of tents, even sleeping bags covered in mold. Throughout the night, I heard footsteps pacing outside. Sometimes it was a chuckle. Sometimes it sounded like heavy breathing near the ventilation vents. But Hilton is so calm. He just said, "As long as you don't answer the voice outside, they can't touch you." At 2 a.m., a loud knocking sound appeared. It's not like people are knocking, but it's like banging your head against the wall. I'm shaking. But Hilton remained sitting, with his eyes closed. And when I shone my flashlight through the window, there was a figure standing right outside. His face was pale. His lips were pulled upwards, like a forced smile. His hand was gently patting the window pane. And his clothes. It was the exact same jacket as mine. I almost lost my breath. But Hilton opened his eyes and spoke softly. "It wasn't you. It wasn't anyone. Focus." The next morning, we were ready to set off. Hilton said he knew a trail that had been closed for a long time, but we had to hurry. I followed him for 2 hours. Along the way, we saw countless signs of other unknown hikers. An old shoe hanging from a branch. A piece of a jacket hanging from a tall tree. Writing on the bark, "Please, this is no ordinary forest." And finally, we reached a stone path. But as we were about to climb the incline, my own voice shouted from behind, "Stop. You're being lied to." I stopped immediately. That's my own voice. But the tone of his scream was panic. Exactly like my voice when I was scared yesterday. Hilton immediately grabbed my hand. "Don't listen to your own voice. That's them. They start following you. That means you've been branded." We continued walking, quickly. Our steps became heavier. The tree roots were high and slippery, and the fog descended again, thicker. It seemed like it didn't want me to leave. Halfway up the incline, I began to hear the sound of a third set of footsteps. I looked back, but no one was there. I asked Hilton quietly, "It's just the two of us, right?" He didn't answer. But he stopped, took a small canister out of his jacket pocket, and scattered white powder on the ground. Like ash or salt. If they get closer, the only way is to feel who's real. I was confused as to what he meant. But the next second, another figure appeared before me. His face looked like Hilton's. Exactly. But her smile was strange. Stiff. Her eyes were too round. And her lips were too thick. The other one, the real Hilton, pulled out a small knife and spoke. "You decide who you follow. The wrong one will drag you down forever." I started to panic. I focus on how they walk. One has normal slow steps, heavy breathing. The other one is too calm. His feet don't seem to touch the ground. I made a decision. I ran in the direction where the road was heavy, and I could hear the sound of his breathing. The other figure immediately followed. But don't run. He just stood and watched me run away. I heard him scream, "Wrong person. You'll come back here again." The scream was low, but hoarse. Like it wasn't a human voice anymore. The real Hilton and I kept running until we came across a small, half-collapsed wooden plank. Restricted area, entry without permit is strictly prohibited. And about 100 meters from there, I look at my car. There still is. Still intact. I immediately arrived, opened the door, and cried in the car seat. Hilton stood far behind, nodding slowly. "Never tell anyone where the entrance is. Let the brave experience it for themselves." I gassed the car, speeding out of the forest. When you look in the rearview mirror, I just saw a tall figure, standing in the middle of the dirt road. But not the Hilton. That's me. My version. The silent one with pitch black eyes. I didn't dare look anymore. And from then on, I never camped alone again.